You get pulled over, you blow a 0.09, you're arrested, you spend a night in county, and a few weeks later you plead out to a first offense DUI. The fine is $500. You pay it. You think you're done. You are not done. You have not started. The real cost of a first offense DUI in the United States is, on average, between $10,000 and $15,000, and for some drivers, it crosses $20,000. That $500 fine, it's about 4% of what you'll actually pay. Here's where the rest goes. Here's what most people picture when they think about the cost of a DUI. A fine, maybe a few $100s, a suspended license for a few months, possibly some community service. You pay what the court tells you to pay, you serve your time, and then it's over. The state got its money. You learned your lesson. Clean slate. That's the version that exists in people's heads. It's not wrong, exactly. Those things do happen. What's missing is every other cost the court doesn't mention when the judge reads your sentence. The costs that don't show up in the fine schedule. The costs that start the day after conviction and follow you for the next 3 to 5 years. The gap between the fine on paper and the total financial hit is where the real cost lives. A DUI conviction triggers a cascade of mandatory expenses. Each one is separate. Each one has its own billing cycle. They don't cancel each other out. They stack. The immediate costs hit first. If you were arrested, bail typically runs $150 to $2,500 depending on the county. Add a towing and impound fee, usually $100 to $400 for the night your car gets seized, plus a daily storage rate if it takes you a few days to retrieve it. The court then imposes your base fine, which varies by state and BAC level, but the base fine is rarely the number you actually pay. Courts add penalty assessments, surcharges, victim restitution funds, and administrative fees. By the time those are added, a $500 base fine in California, for example, becomes $1,500 to $2,500 after assessments. The court fines and fees category averages around $1,100 to $4,160 nationally, depending on where you were arrested. Then comes the attorney. You can use a public defender, but for a charge that stays on your criminal record for 7 to 10 years, most people hire private counsel. A basic DUI attorney costs $3,500 to $5,000. An experienced one in a major metro runs $8,000 or more. That number matters because the quality of your legal representation directly affects what you're convicted of, how long your license is suspended, and whether you're ordered into a treatment program. Your license gets suspended. Most states impose a suspension of 90 days to a year for a first offense. To get it reinstated, you pay a reinstatement fee, typically $100 to $250. But license reinstatement is also conditional, which is where the next cost comes in. Most states now require an ignition interlock device, or IID, a breathalyzer wired into your car's ignition that you must blow into before the car will start. The device costs roughly $150 to install and then $70 to $100 per month in lease and calibration fees. A standard first offense IID requirement runs 6 to 12 months. At $80 per month for 9 months, that's $870 before you get your car back to normal. And if you fail a test, the device locks out and you pay an additional fee to reset it. Alcohol education and treatment. Most first offense sentences require mandatory alcohol education classes, DUI school, or substance abuse treatment. These programs run $150 to $2,000, depending on length and whether a judge orders an assessment. They're not optional. They're a condition of probation. That's the immediate damage. Then, the real long-term cost shows up. The insurance hit is where most people lose the most money, and almost no one sees it coming. After a DUI conviction, your insurer reclassifies you as a high-risk driver. Average car insurance rates for a driver with a clean record run about $2,524 per year nationally. After a single DUI, the national average jumps to $4,850 per year. That's an increase of $2,326 every 12 months. Most states require a DUI surcharge to stay on your record for 3 to 7 years. Use 5 years as a conservative middle. $2,326 extra per year for 5 years is $11,630, just in insurance. But there's an additional layer. Many states require you to file an SR-22, not a new insurance policy, but a certificate your insurer files with the DMV proving you're carrying minimum coverage. The SR-22 itself is inexpensive, usually $25 to $50 per year in filing fees. What it does, though, is keep you permanently flagged as a high-risk driver for as long as you're required to carry it, typically 3 years. If your insurer drops you, which some do after a DUI, you have to find coverage through the high-risk market, where rates are higher still. A second wrinkle. Your insurer may not tell you right away. Many insurance companies don't pull your driving record mid-policy. They wait until renewal. That means you might go 6 months without a premium increase, and then get a renewal notice that looks like a completely different policy. And there are the costs people forget entirely. Every court date you attend is a day you're not working. If your license is suspended, you need to find alternative transportation for months. Rideshares, taxis, someone driving you. In cities without transit, that's a real recurring expense. Some employers terminate employees upon DUI conviction, particularly in roles involving driving, professional licenses, security clearances, or working with children or vulnerable populations. About 96% of US employers run criminal background checks on job applicants. A DUI stays visible on most background checks for 7 to 10 years. A felony upgrade changes everything. A standard first offense DUI is typically a misdemeanor, but several factors can escalate it to a felony. BAC of 0.15 or higher in many states, a child in the vehicle, causing an accident that injures or kills someone, or a prior DUI on record. A felony DUI carries prison time, not just jail, attorney fees that can reach $15,000 to $20,000, and a permanent felony conviction on your record that affects housing applications, professional licensing, and federal student aid eligibility. The financial and life trajectory of a felony DUI is in a completely different category. Here's the number people quote when they talk about DUI costs: the fine. Maybe they've heard it's around $500 or $1,000. That's the number that shows up in conversations, in news articles, sometimes on state DMV websites, right? Wrong. That number is the base fine before assessments. In most states, the base fine accounts for less than 10% of total first-year costs. Here's what the actual accounting looks like for a typical first offense: bail and impound, $600. Court fines and fees after assessments, $1,800. Attorney, private, basic, $4,000. License reinstatement, $150. IID for 9 months, $870. Alcohol education program, $500. First-year insurance increase, $2,326. That's $10,246 in year one. And that assumes you didn't lose any wages, didn't need significant transportation alternatives, and your employer kept you on. It also doesn't include the next 4 years of elevated insurance premiums, which add another $9,304. The 5-year total cost of a first offense DUI, when you account for the insurance tail alone, runs approximately $19,550. Many sources cite the national average at $10,000 to $15,000. That figure often counts only year one costs. 5-year total is closer to $20,000 before any of the harder to quantify losses. The $500 fine is real. It is also about 2.5% of what you'll pay. There is, for what it's worth, one cost this video hasn't mentioned. The ignition interlock device requires you to blow into a tube before your car will start, every time. It also requires a rolling retest at random intervals while you're driving, meaning the car will beep and you will have to blow into a tube while actively operating a vehicle, which is an arrangement so obviously designed by people who have never considered the optics that we will simply leave it there. This isn't a hypothetical. In 2024, approximately 800 to 4,926 Americans were arrested for DUI. That's about 11% of all arrests nationwide, according to data cited by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Each of those arrests initiates the cost cascade described in this video. The NHTSA has also calculated the total economic cost of drunk driving crashes, not just individual convictions, but the full toll of accidents, emergency response, medical treatment, lost productivity, and legal processing, at $58 billion annually. For comparison, the average rideshare across a metro area after a night out costs between $15 and $40. The average taxi is roughly the same. The cost spread between those options and a first offense DUI conviction is, conservatively, $9,960. The math on the alternatives was always better. The question was just whether anyone had run it. 2 things you can look up if this number is relevant to you or someone you know. First, your state's DUI cost calculator. Several state DMV websites and legal aid organizations publish detailed breakdowns of first offense DUI costs specific to your state. Alaska's DMV, for example, publishes a figure of $24,265 as the average first offense cost in that state. The range by state is significant. Look up yours specifically. Second, if you have been arrested but not yet convicted, the law in every state gives you the right to contest an administrative license suspension separately from your criminal case. These are two parallel proceedings with different deadlines, often as short as 7 to 10 days from arrest to request a DMV hearing. Missing that deadline typically means an automatic suspension regardless of how your criminal case resolves. It's information that's in the paperwork you receive at arrest. The timeline starts immediately. Every number in this video is in the links below. Check them yourself. If the gap between what you thought this cost and what it actually costs surprised you, there are 20 more videos exactly like this one. Now you know the real cost.